Hello kids, how are you today? Welcome back to Reading for Vocabulary. Are you excited to learn about sports? Do you like sports? Do you like to play sports or do you like to watch sports? Maybe you like to do both. Okay, well, we're going to talk about sports in this lesson, and we're going to be focusing on the ancient Olympics. So let's learn about the history of the Olympics. So you know about the Olympics, right? The Olympics where every country in the world competes and there's television and you can watch it on TV and you can cheer for your own nation. Of course, that happens every 4 years. But we're not talking about the modern Olympics. We're talking about the ancient Olympics in this lesson. Ancient means a long, long time ago. Thousands of years ago, before television, right? Before many nations in the world, there was the ancient Olympics, and these were held in Greece, okay? Athletes from different cities in ancient Greece would get together and they would compete. They would have a contest in many different sports. Where would they do it? They would do it under Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus is where the Greeks thought the gods lived, at the top of the mountain. And the mountain was called Olympus. And so they called it the Olympic Games. And like I said, from many different cities in Greece, the athletes would come and compete. And of course, ancient Greece is very famous, right? For not only many old buildings and many impressive and beautiful structures, but also because of their culture and their way of thinking. But they were the ones who created the Olympics in the beginning thousands of years ago, the ancient Olympics. So that's what we're going to read about in this lesson. But before we do that, let's learn some vocabulary. Okay, and our first word is a person who is very famous. Of course, you know many people who are famous, singers, actors on television, actors in the movie. What do we call these people? It starts with a C. It is celebrity. Celebrity is a person who is very, very famous, and everybody knows who that person is. Okay, what's the next word? The next word is a bird. No, it's not a bird. It's a thing or idea that can represent another idea. The example is a bird. The example is a dove. When people see a dove, what do they think of? They think of peace. So the dove is a symbol of peace. So if you can look at animals, you can look at flags. The taeguki, the Korean flag, is a symbol for Korea, right? So it's a thing or idea that can represent another idea, right? So this thing here, the dove, represents the idea of peace. Okay, next word. Ooh, whoa, he is very angry. Be careful, 조심해요. Right? He looks like very, very dangerous dog, right? Strong and dangerous, right? 조심해요. So what is the word that we use? We use, it's not dog, it's fierce. Okay, fierce. Now, I have a dog, a beagle, but she's not fierce. She's very lovable and cute. But this dog, woo, 조심해요, right? This dog is very fierce, strong and dangerous. Okay, next one. 4, no smoking. To let someone do something. To let someone do something is to allow them to do something. But if you have a sign that says no smoking, this would be not allow someone to do something. So the picture and the word are a little bit mismatched, but that's okay. Because if we allow people to smoke here, then there's no sign, right? That means we let them do something. If your mother lets you play video games after dinner, then she's allowing you to do that. But do your homework first, okay? Okay. Next one. A race. To be part of a race or other competition. What do we say? We say it is compete. To be part, this is a verb, right? Because you are part of a race or other competition. If you are in a race or another competition, it doesn't have to be a race. It could be a chess game, maybe a chess tournament, or it could be a soccer game, right? It could be anything where you compete. Compete is a verb. It's like you're not really fighting against somebody, but you're using your skill against another person to win. You are competing. Okay? And of course, compete is a verb, and we have competition, right? Competition is the noun. And competition is a game or any other contest where you use your skill to win. Okay, next one. A feeling of doing well so others can see. A feeling of doing well so others can see. We say this is pride, right? If he's on the football team, he's a very young football player, he won, right? He has the trophy. His team won the competition. So he has a lot of pride. He has pride, but be careful, he is proud. So pride is the noun. We can say he shows his pride. In this case, pride is a noun. But be careful, we can also say he is proud, which is also very common, but in this case, proud is an adjective, right? This is noun, okay? So he shows his pride, or he has pride. Next, he is proud, adjective. So be careful with the word form. Okay. Next, more than normal. If something is more than normal, what do we say? We say especially. Especially is kind of like when you want to point out something in particular, some special case, right? Then we use especially. Okay. To go somewhere. Well, perhaps when you're older, you can travel around the world like this young girl is doing here. She's traveling. Looks like she's in France, in Paris. To go somewhere is to travel, right? To travel, you can travel around the world. Next one. This is a sport where athletes wear gloves and hit each other. You know this sport, right? You've seen this before. These guys are being safe. They're wearing gloves and they're wearing a padded helmet, right? What are they doing, right? They're doing this sport. It's not wrestling, it is boxing. Boxing. Now, be careful. Boxing is a noun. It's the name of the sport. A few days ago, I was in my neighborhood and I saw a poster. Somebody opened a boxing gym and they wanted to be funny. Do you know the movie Shall We Dance? Well, they used that idea for the movie title, and on their poster they put Shall We Boxing. And I thought, what? Shall We Boxing? No, it should be Shall we box? Because box is a verb. Boxing is a noun, right? The movie is not called Shall We Dancing? No, Shall We Dance? Shall we box? Okay? Because box is the verb. So be careful again of the word form. ING is a noun. Boxing. I like boxing. Can you box? Okay, next word. Parts of a plant tied together in a circle. At Christmas time, we can see these. Many people put them on their doors. They hang them on their doors. It's like Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas, right? We call it a wreath, okay? But it's not just for Christmas. Wreaths can be used for other occasions, but most common, people think of a wreath at Christmas time. This is a Christmas wreath. But we'll see another kind of wreath in the reading. Okay, next one. Oh, don't look! 보지마세요! No, I'm just kidding. 뻥해요. Right? Because it's 귀엽지요. 너무 귀엽지요, right? A little baby, right? But usually babies, they don't wear any clothes. It's obviously, of course, when they're first born, they're not wearing clothes, right? So what do we say? They are naked. We come into this world naked, right? We come into the world naked. And usually not so peaceful, but this baby is very peaceful, very cute, right? So not wearing any clothes, somebody is naked. We'll see that in the reading. Okay, next one. Being a girl or woman, not male. So if we talk about, there's about 50% of the people in the world are one sex or the other sex, right? There's male and then there's female, right? So male and female. Basically everybody in the world is either male or female. So about maybe a little more than half of the people in the world are female, okay? So being a girl, woman, not male. Next one. Of course, this is Korea, and you probably know where this is, the DMZ, right? An agreement that all fighting is stopped, right? It's just an agreement. And maybe the fighting is stopped for just a short time, but there hasn't been a formal agreement to stop it forever, right? That's what Korea is under right now, a truce. South Korea and North Korea, they never had a peace agreement. They're just under a truce. Technically, they're still at war, right? But they have had a truce for more than 60 years. So a truce is it's like a temporary stop to the fighting. Hopefully, it will be permanent. But a truce. And it's not just in Korea, anywhere in the world where two groups are fighting and they say, let's have a truce, that means a temporary, a short period where there's no fighting. Okay. A flat piece of metal given as a prize. He's proud too, right? He is proud. He has pride because why? He has a medal. If you do something great, whether in school or you in sports, you win a game or you win a tournament, they might give you a medal. Soldiers wear medals on their chest, right? So a medal is a small piece of metal. It's usually decorated, looks nice, and it's given as a prize. It shows you were excellent in doing something. Okay. Next one is to shout for something good. I talked about this before, of course. It's to cheer. When I talked about the Olympics, I say you cheer for your country, don't you? Of course. When you watch the Olympics every 4 years, you cheer for Korea, right? 대한민국, right? You say, go Korea, right? So you cheer for your country or you cheer for your team. You shout, you yell, you go crazy, right? Okay. Next one, a box that shows us moving pictures. A box that shows it. What is that? Have you ever seen one of those before? What could that be? Oh, it's a television, of course. Very common. I'm just kidding, of course. Everybody knows what a television is. It's like a box. Well, not anymore. It used to be a box. Now it's a very thin screen, right? But it used to be like a big box that was very heavy. But thankfully, technology has moved on. So anyway, television. You're watching a video screen right now. Maybe you're watching this on television. You're probably watching it on your computer screen. But anyway, television is where you watch TV shows and movies. Okay, let's move on. Let's go over the words, the vocabulary. Okay, let's see how well you remember these words. Choose the word that best completes the sentence. We have words down here. We have a blank. We need to complete the sentence with these words. Let's take a look. I won't beep you to leave. You haven't done your homework. So, mom says this when the boy or girl wants to go out and play. But mom says, I won't what? You to leave. You need to stay here and finish your homework. You haven't done your homework. You need to stay here, do your homework, and then you can leave. Then I will beep you to leave. What? I will give you to leave? That doesn't make sense. I will honor you to leave? That doesn't make sense. I will compete you to leave, or I will allow you to leave. Aha. Allow sounds like it would be a good choice, right? I won't allow you to leave. That's the answer. I won't allow you to leave. I won't let you leave because you haven't done your homework. When you finish your homework, then I will allow you, then you can go, then you are able to leave, right? I will give you permission. Okay, number 2. There is a beep storm outside. Let's stay in. So you want to stay inside because there's a storm outside. It's raining or it's snowing. The wind is blowing very strongly. It could be dangerous, strong and dangerous. So what can we say? There is a fierce storm. Fierce means dangerous, right? Strong and dangerous, right? So there's a fierce storm outside. That sounds good. Let's check the others. There's a peaceful storm. Oh, peaceful, it's very nice. Why would we stay inside? And have you ever heard of a storm that is peaceful? That doesn't make sense. There is a rude storm. The wind's going by going, yeah, get out of my way, right? That's crazy. Okay, so C doesn't work. D, there's a slow storm outside. Let's stay in. That's a little bit isangheo. The best word is fierce. There's a fierce storm outside. Let's stay in. If there's a fierce storm, it means the wind is blowing really strong. It's very dangerous. Okay, so stay inside. Stay warm and stay safe. I was beep tired today. I only slept for 4 hours. So maybe you were playing video games late last night? No, not video games. You were studying, right? You were studying late last night, so you only slept for 4 hours. So if you only sleep for 4 hours, you're really tired, right? So what word means kind of like really or very? Does less? No, less doesn't mean really or very. B, slowly? That doesn't make sense. C, quickly? I was quickly tired today? That's strange. So D, I was especially. Especially means more than normal, like very or really. I was especially tired today. I only slept for 4 hours. So the answer, of course, is especially. I was especially tired today. Okay, next one, number 4. That flag is the beep of our nation. I talked about this before, right? When we saw the picture of the dove, but I also gave you another example. I said the taeguki, the Korean flag, is the beep of Korea. Just like the stars and stripes is the beep for America, right? A flag is a what? A flag is a symbol of a nation. So that flag is the symbol of our nation. Not the treat, not the top, not the celebrity, but the symbol. You see it and you think of something else. It's the symbol of our nation. Okay, next one, number 5. I don't want to beep in the soccer game. Maybe you feel sick or you're injured, so you don't want to play soccer, right? You don't want to participate. What word means play in a game or participate in a contest? I don't want to forget in the soccer game. That doesn't make sense because we don't use forget and in. I don't want to compete in the soccer game. Compete. Remember, compete means to use your skills to try to win in a contest. And that's what they're doing. So compete is probably our word. But let's just check. I don't want to enjoy in the soccer game. That doesn't make sense because, again, we don't say enjoy in. If in bego hamyeon, right? If in was gone, right? We could use I don't want to forget the soccer game. I don't want to enjoy the soccer game. Those would make sense, but because of in, they don't make sense. I don't want to allow the soccer game. Also, if in was not there, then we could say, yeah, it's possible. I don't want to allow the soccer game. It's too noisy, for example. I don't want to allow it. But because of in, this one, this one, this one, and this one, they don't make sense. The only one that makes sense is compete. We compete in a game. We compete in a contest. So that's a good thing to remember. When you use the word compete, use the preposition in. I want to compete in the soccer game. I want to compete in the chess tournament. I want to compete in the tennis championships. You compete in something. Okay, number 6. That singer is my favorite. Beep. She is so famous, right? We talked about what do we call very famous people. Engineer? No. Well, some engineers can be famous, but engineers aren't normally famous, right? A veterinarian? No, a veterinarian is just an animal doctor, not a famous person. C, a celebrity. Aha! That's the word we talked about before. Someone who's very, very famous is a celebrity. That's the answer, right? And D, doctor? No, because doctor is very similar to veterinarian. This one, and this one are names of specific jobs. Engineer builds buildings or makes sure things are working like machines and things like that. Veterinarian is a doctor who takes care of animals, and of course a doctor takes care of people. They're just normal jobs. But a celebrity doesn't really mean a job, it means a person who is very famous. But it could be for anything, singing, acting, or for something that they did that was bad, right? Usually celebrities are positive though, right? Somebody who's famous, but we don't know what they do for a job. They're just very famous. Okay, next one. Number 7, do you want to beep to India with me? What word makes sense? Ask, travel, enjoy, compete. Do you want to compete to India with me? That sounds funny. Actually, what's the best answer here? If you choose B, you're right. Do you want to travel to India with me? Because that means let's go to another country or go on a long journey. Do you want to travel? Before I said you can travel around the world. Be careful, don't say trip, right? Trip is a noun. Let's take a trip. Take a trip. Trip is a noun, it's not a verb, right? Unless trip means you hit your foot on something and you fall down, then you trip. But you don't want to trip to India because that's very painful. You want to travel to India, that's the verb. Travel to India, trip is a noun. Okay, take a trip to India, but do you want to travel to India? Okay, number 8, you did very well in school. Your parents will be so what? If you do well in school, your parents, how will they feel? Will they feel calm, angry, proud, or bored? Of course, your parents will be proud, right? You did very well in school. Your parents will be so proud. They won't be angry. That's crazy, right? They'll be very proud of you. They'll say, that's my kid, right? Joe or Sally did well in school. I'm very proud of my child. Okay? Okay, well that wraps it up for the vocabulary section. Let's take a short break here. We'll come back and take a look at the reading. Okay, welcome back. We've studied the vocabulary. Now, are you ready to read about the ancient Olympics in Greece? Let's get started. The title, of course, is the Ancient Olympics, and we're talking about the history, kind of like the history of the Olympics. Let's take a look. The Olympics are the world's greatest sporting event. So that's our first statement. The Olympics are the world's greatest sporting event. That's kind of like a declarative statement about our subject. Then we ask a question. Did you know? So we ask the question with did you know? Some interesting fact. We want to know, do you know some interesting fact about something? Did you know they started 2,000 years ago? That's surprising. 2,000 years ago. Very long time. A lot was different back then. Okay, so what this tells us is we know the subject, the Olympics. We're going to talk about the Olympics 2,000 years ago. And we see that things were different. So we're going to kind of take a look at how different the ancient Olympics are compared to the modern Olympics. But we're going to focus on the ancient Olympics. So what were the ancient Olympics like? The athletes, first difference, the athletes competed naked. Okay. There were no female athletes, so only male athletes, and they didn't wear clothes. Okay? So they competed naked. You know, back then they didn't think it was a big deal. So what? And of course they don't have the kind of technology we do for all the fancy sports clothes, right? They didn't have that. So it was probably easier for them not to wear clothes. And sometimes the boxing was so fierce that people died. So there's two differences here in the ancient Olympics. One is that, well, actually three. One is that people didn't wear clothes. The second is only males competed. And the third is that the boxing matches were so fierce, the competitors were so strong that sometimes somebody died in the boxing match. But that is not common, of course, today. So 3 differences in this section. Okay, the ancient Olympics were held in Olympia, Greece. I talked about Mount Olympus, right? Well, the town that was near Mount Olympus was called Olympia. So that's where the name comes from. Men from all over Greece, all over Greece. So Greece was kind of an area, a region, wasn't really a nation yet. It was just kind of an area, a region, the peninsula that came down into the sea, the Mediterranean. Well, people from all over this region traveled to Olympia to compete, to play, better to use to compete. Compete sounds better. Compete in, we talked about that. Compete in the games, okay? So they came from all over to compete in the games. There was an Olympic truce, so athletes could travel safely. What does that mean? That means, well, ancient Greece 2,000 years ago, right? It was kind of dangerous. There weren't really any policemen, right? And sometimes different cities fought wars with each other. Sparta would fight with Athens, or Athens would have a fight with another Greek town, right? So, but during the Olympics, there was a truce. All the cities said, we won't fight. There will be a time of peace, so the athletes could travel safely. Now, winning an Olympic game would bring them and their cities great pride. Who are them? The athletes. Athletes. Okay? So winning an Olympic game would bring them, the athletes, and the athletes' cities great pride. So of course they would be very proud. I won the game. I'm the winner. And of course their city, Thrace or Sparta or Athens, would say, yay, we won. Right? Or Thebes, not Thrace. Thebes would say, yay, we won. Okay, next. There were fewer events than in today's Olympics. Another difference, right? We talked about the men competed, it was only men, they competed naked, and sometimes the boxing was so fierce that people died. Another difference is there were fewer events, not as many events as in today's Olympics. They didn't have skiing, right? They didn't have curling, okay? They had just a lot less events, fewer events. But though they were few, the ancient events were exciting and often dangerous. The boxing was especially violent. So, even though the events were less in number, they were exciting and sometimes dangerous, more dangerous than nowadays. And we already talked about boxing. Sometimes people would die in boxing, right? They would die. And so it was especially, really, very, in particular, boxing was very dangerous. Okay. It had only 2 rules. It refers back to boxing. Boxing had only 2 rules. So it refers back to boxing. Whoops. Boxing. Boxing had only 2 rules. 1 rule. The first person to give up was the loser. 2, if an athlete died, then the other athlete was the winner. So only 2 rules. So you could give up. You say, okay, I give up, I surrender. Or sometimes people fought to the death. And if one person died, then the other person, the other athlete, the person who didn't die, was the winner. Okay, so just 2 rules. Wow, that's crazy, right? Very dangerous sport. Okay, next one. Instead of medals made of silver and gold, the winners got olive wreaths and palm branches. Okay, so that's another difference between the modern Olympics and the ancient Olympics. Of course, we know in the modern Olympics, people get a gold medal, they get a silver medal, and they get a bronze medal. But they didn't get medals in the ancient Olympics 2,000 years ago. Instead, they got an olive wreath and palm branches. What was that? These were powerful symbols. The winning athlete wore the wreath on their head. Okay, so that's a big difference. Nowadays, you put the medal around your neck, right? But back then, they took an olive wreath, a wreath made of olive branches, and they put it on their head. Not a Christmas wreath, but a wreath that shows the winner of the games. And the person who's wearing the olive wreath, they are the winner, right? Maybe the other competitors got palm branches, but they were symbols. They said these people competed in the Olympics, and the person wearing the wreath, they were the winner. So you look at that person, wow, that person won the games. So they had a lot of prestige. It was a very powerful symbol. Wow, he's the winner. He's great. And so that person was very famous just by the wreath on his head. When he arrived home, he was cheered as a celebrity, right? So he comes home, he's wearing the wreath. The other people say, yay! They know he's the winner, right? So they cheer for him, and he's very famous in his town and in Greece also. The people of his city gave him money and big containers of olive oil, right? Olive oil is a very precious commodity. Still today, it's kind of expensive, right? It's very useful, it's very practical. Back then, 2,000 years ago, it was also very important, right? And of course, they also gave that person money. Okay, and these are some of the athletes competing, right? Again, an example of Greek art. Okay. Women weren't allowed to compete in the games, and only a few were allowed to watch. Maybe this was because the athletes didn't wear any clothes. Okay, we talked about this a little bit before. Only men competed and they didn't wear clothes, so women weren't allowed to compete. Women couldn't compete in the games, and only a few, maybe, very important women in society, only those women were allowed to watch the games, but very few women. Maybe because, why? We're not sure, so we say maybe. We're not sure, so we say maybe this was because the athletes didn't wear any clothes. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. But there could have been other reasons. Maybe people thought that, oh, these sporting events are only for men, so women aren't allowed. We don't know. So we say maybe. We're not sure of the reason, but maybe it was because the athletes didn't wear any clothes. Okay. Greeks thought that the human body was beautiful. They competed naked so everyone could enjoy their beauty. So the Greeks, and you look in their art, not just in the art of the Olympics, but in their statues and other things that survive from from the Greek culture, they really emphasized the human form. They thought the human body was very beautiful, especially strong, young bodies, especially male bodies, were very beautiful because they thought that the male was the ideal human being, of course. That was a long time ago, 2,000 years ago. Things have changed since then. But still people think that human bodies are beautiful, of course. But they competed naked so everyone could enjoy the beauty of the human body. And think, wow, it's part of the sport, really. Okay. The games ended when Olympia was destroyed in an earthquake. That's terrible, right? But Greece has many earthquakes. That region, that area of the world, kind of like Japan, has a lot of earthquakes. So Olympia was destroyed in an earthquake. The games stopped. But this wasn't the end. The modern Olympics started about 100 years ago. So people, when they start reading about the ancient Greece, and they start reading, and they say, oh, the Greeks had games, and they had peace in their country. Why don't we do the same thing? So 100 years ago, people decided to do that, and of course now we have the modern Olympics. The modern Olympics just started 100 years ago. It wasn't continued for thousands of years. It stopped, and then it continued again just 100 years ago. And that's the modern Olympics. Now, the games have changed a lot, okay? So now we're comparing the ancient Olympics to the modern Olympics. Television allows the whole world to watch. The games are held in different cities every 4 years. And of course, the athletes wear clothes, okay? So there's a lot of differences, right? Television, everybody in the world can watch the Olympics now. All you need is a television set. And the games are held in different cities, not just in Greece, but in different cities, not just Olympia, but in different cities, right? The Olympics was held in Seoul, right? The Olympics was held in Beijing, in London, next time in Sochi, right? In Russia. So it changes every 4 years. And of course, nowadays, athletes wear clothes. And it doesn't say it here, but of course, athletes are men and also women. Both sexes can participate in the Olympics. And there are so many events, okay? But anyway, that's the difference between the modern Olympics and the ancient Olympics. Okay, let's review. What is this story about? The first question is always, what is this story about? What is the main subject, okay? Not the detail, but the main subject. So this story is about A, the oldest sport in the world. The oldest sport in the world. Okay? Is it about one sport? Let's think about that. Is it B, a famous athlete? Just one famous athlete? No, it's not about one famous athlete. Just like it's not about a sport. A sport is like boxing or running. That's just one sport. But we're not talking about one sport here. We're talking about many different events. Just like we're not talking about one famous athlete. In fact, we didn't hear about any one famous athlete. So A and B are not correct. What about an ancient sporting event? What is an event? An event is a collection. It could be something that happens, but it could be a collection of many different games. And that sounds like the answer. An ancient sporting event. The Olympics were an event. So it's probably C. Let's just take a look. The story is about fierce boxing. Fierce boxing was only a small detail of the story, right? Sure, we talked about fierce boxing. People can die, but that was only a small detail. The main thing that this story was about the Olympics. And what are the Olympics? The Olympics are an event. So this story is about an ancient sporting event. C is the answer, because the Olympics are an event. Okay? Number 2, men all over Greece could travel to the Olympics safely. Why? Because we talked about this before. A long time ago, right? Cities fought with each other, right? Sparta might fight against Greece, right? Somebody might be angry at Thebes. Different cities had wars going on. So how could the people travel safely? Why? Because their cities were proud of them? Well, that doesn't make it safe for them to travel. Because there was a truce? What is a truce? A truce is an agreement. Let's stop all fighting for a short time. That's our answer, right? They could travel safely during a truce. Let's check C and D. Because Olympia was in Greece. Maybe that could be an answer, but the better answer is that there's a truce. That's what it said in the story. D, they wanted to win and bring pride to their cities. That doesn't have anything to do with being able to travel safely. Just because they wanted to win, that doesn't mean that they would be safe, right? So the best answer here is B, because there was a truce. Not just because Olympia was in Greece. You might think, well, yeah, they didn't have to travel far. But the main thing, the thing that it said in the story is because they could travel safely because there was a truce. So that's the best answer. B is the best answer. Okay, number 4. When an athlete arrived home, the people knew he was a winner because. How? How did they know he was a winner, right? Because they were cheering? Well, they're not going to cheer until they know he's the winner, so that doesn't make sense. Because they gave him money and olive oil? Well, that's similar to A. Why would they give him money and olive oil if they don't know he's the winner yet? Okay? C, because he had a gold medal? No, remember, the gold medal was the modern Olympics, not the ancient Olympics, so that doesn't make sense. That's not correct. D, because he was wearing an olive wreath. Aha! Right? In the modern Olympics, they give gold medals. But in the ancient Olympics, they gave an olive wreath that the winner wore on the head. That's how the people knew who the winner was. So D is the answer. When an athlete arrived home, the people knew he was a winner because he was wearing an olive wreath. That's how they knew. Okay, well, it's very interesting learning about the Olympics 2,000 years ago. So now we know how this modern sporting event was started, right? We know where it happened and what a little bit about the rules. Very interesting about how they played the Olympics or competed in the Olympics 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece. Well, very interesting. I hope you learned a lot in this lesson, as I did while I was preparing for this lesson. It's always interesting to learn about history. Okay, well, we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.